Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome back to my greenhouse here at Roots and Refuge Farm. My name is Jess, and today I want to answer a question I've been getting a lot lately, and I always do this time of year. And that question is, what is the best medium to start seeds in, or do you prefer potting soil or a seed starting mix? Now I actually do have an opinion on this, and I have a way that I like to do things, but I don't really like telling you guys what to do without explaining why. So today I just want to talk to you guys a little bit about the intended use for seed starting mix and potting soil, and why I use potting soil to start my seeds. The first thing though that I think we should always cover when we're talking about gardening stuff is just the baseline that plants need three main things to thrive. Doesn't matter if it's a seedling, doesn't matter if it's a transplant sized plant, doesn't matter if it's a plant living out in your garden or whatever it is. Plants need three main things to survive, and that is the appropriate amount of light, the appropriate amount of water, and the appropriate amount of nutrients. And it doesn't really matter how you get those things to the plants. Like for instance, with light, you might have your plants outside, or they might be under grow lights. With nutrients, those nutrients can come by composted organic matter in soil, or by fertilizers being added to the soil, or by like hydroponics. People put the nutrients in through the water. Doesn't matter how you get the nutrients to the plant, they need the nutrients in order to thrive. And you could go on to say, well, they also need the appropriate temperature and they need protection from pests, and all of that is true, but the baseline, the non-negotiables, water, light, and nutrients, if your plants are struggling, those are the things you always go check first. And keeping that in mind when you're doing something like choosing a product like growing medium or the pots that you're going to start your seeds in, keep in mind, I'm looking for products that are going to help me provide my plants with the three main things that they need. And knowing that kind of eliminates some of the confusion of why we choose certain products to do that job. So let's start with talking about seed starting mix. Now this is just a bag of seed starting mix that I got at a local store. This one's Jiffy, but they're all pretty similar. Now this particular mix is peat moss, coconut coir, and vermiculite. And I want to just show you the texture of it. See here, it's super light and fluffy. Very, very nice. And that is the big benefit of a seed starting mix, is that nice, light, fluffy texture. So when a seedling comes out of its seed, it has already enough nutrients in that plant to live for a couple of days. Like it's got enough of that to keep going, enough juice. But those roots are gonna come out of that seed so fine, almost like a fine hair. I mean, they're just so fragile. And if you are starting them in a really dense medium, those roots aren't going to be able to travel through that medium to get the water and the nutrients that they need. So you don't ever want to use any sort of like bagged garden soil. Composts a lot of times are going to just be way too heavy and dense for your root system of your brand new seedling to be able to travel through, and they'll stunt and they won't grow. So the great benefit of seed starting mix is that this light, fluffy material, the roots can just zoom right through it. They can grow really fast with no hindrance, and that is very good. Being that this is peat moss, coconut coir, and vermiculite, this does not have soil in it, and it doesn't have any fertilizers added to it. So seed starting mix does not have any sort of nutrients at all. So the intended use of seed starting mix and how it is designed to be used is that you're going to get a tray that has like small holes. Now this tray has really small holes, but something that has small holes, maybe those that you've seen at the store that have like the little cells in it, that obviously these spaces are not big enough to put a seed in and grow a plant until it's ready to go out into the garden. These are just starting trays. And seed starting mix is intended to be used with something like this that has a small cell, because with seed starting mix, since it has no nutrients in it, the intention is that when a plant grows its first true leaves, which I've got these seedlings right here that I can show you, and these are ready to be separated, but you see they have their first leaves and then their first true leaves. That's about the time that seedling runs out of juice that it is growing from having inside the seed. It had enough nutrients inside the seed to get to that point, and that's about the time it runs out. Now if you got them in a seed starting mix, There's no nutrients in this either. And the logic of that is that this nice light mix, that plant, it's searching for nutrients. And so what it's going to do is it's going to put out its roots hard and fast looking for nutrients. They'll follow nutrients, they'll follow water, and they'll try to grow through the soil until they can get to what they need. But in a seed starting mix, they're not going to find it. That's intentional to force the roots down. But when they get their first true leaves, you need to be ready to up pot those out of the little cells that they started in. And you're going to take that seedling in its seed starting mix and you're going to put it in a larger pot with something like potting soil that has nutrients in it. And so if you've ever started seedlings by filling up pots with something like a seed starting mix, and then you started to notice after a week or two that they started to get some discoloring, like purpling or yellowing or something like that, they just needed nutrients, and those are the signs that they put off for a phosphorus deficiency or nitrogen deficiency or whatever it is. But don't worry if you have done that. It's okay. If your seedlings are struggling because they have nutrient deficiency, just give them the nutrients. You just get some sort of liquid fertilizer, and you can grow up to the point of transplant in a seed starting mix, but you are going to just have to regularly feed your plants because you got to give them the 3 things that they need. There are all kinds of products you can get, but some sort of good organic liquid fertilizer. Follow the instructions. Don't be tempted to supersize it. It's actually not good for your plants to give them too much fertilizer. It'll stunt them. And that will meet the requirements because they'll continue to grow happily with their roots in this, being able to move around and get established. And as long as you're keeping it moist and you are giving them nutrients and light, your seedlings are going to be great. Or you can use this product as intended, which is to up pot them with their first true leaves and put them in something like this. The other benefit of a seed starting mix that is specifically for seed starting is, well, this is a benefit that they tout, is that they're sterilized. And the idea of that is that there's not going to be any sort of like weed seeds or fungus or mold, mildew, bacteria, anything like that, which is good. Obviously, you don't want those things. The problem that I have with saying you must use seed starting mix because it's sterilized is that I think it discounts the fact that it was sterilized when it went in this bag. But if you've ever bought any sort of product at a garden center, you know that sometimes you will get a bag that has a little hole in it or maybe a little tear in it or something like that. Well, if that's the case, there's no guarantee you're not going to bring this bag home and start all your stuff and have fungus gnats. Because even though it's sterilized when it went in, if it sat on a garden center shelf for a month before it got to you, it might not be sterilized by the time it gets to you. If you are concerned about bacteria, insects, weed seeds, anything like that, you can take either seed starting mix or potting soil and put that in a big tub and pour boiling water over it to sterilize it yourself. You don't have to purchase it sterilized. You can actually sterilize it. Sake of full disclosure, I actually don't do that. It is a risk. I have to disclose the fact that it is a risk. Don't be like, well, Jessica Sowards doesn't sterilize her stuff, and so I'm not going to either, and then get fungus gnats and curse my name. But like, I don't do that. I am totally a lazy girl when it comes to gardening, and I just usually don't take the extra steps that are required on something like that. So those are the benefits of seed starting mix. That bag is about $6. So it is definitely a more expensive product, and some people swear by it. Some people love it. They definitely love that fine texture. They love the fact that they can just put it straight in their trays, start in it, and they know their stuff is going to just like take off and not have to worry about stunting and not have to worry about the possibility of bugs or fungus. And I understand why people do. Personally, I feel like it's kind of a waste of time and money. That's my personal stance on it. If I'm going to have to up pot stuff into this in a week anyway, I would rather just go ahead and start in this. And I will tell you, I've been starting my seeds in potting soil for like a while. I've used multiple different brands. I have never had any issues with seeds not germinating or stunting and not growing in potting soil. Again, you don't want to get garden soil. You want to make sure you're getting like a potting soil, potting mix, something like that. Usually they have that cocoa coir or peat moss or something added to it for drainage so that it doesn't get compact. But I've never had any problems at all with things germinating in this. So let me show you the texture of the potting soil. Okay, so you can see here, definitely a richer texture. It is a little heavier. This is actually a little more wet than that other stuff, but you can see it's nice and dark. It's got a lot of richness to it. And this is a brand called Bacto. I like this. It's an organic soil. I buy at a local farmer's co-op for $10 a bag. I do not like it so much that I would tell you you should pay whatever it costs to have it shipped to you. If the farmer's co-op is closed on a Sunday and I need potting soil, I'll go buy another brand. But it is a really good choice if you have it reasonably priced near to you. The problem with potting soils is that they have debris in them, which this bag, well, here's some different sticks and stuff that are sitting on my potting table here from where I've pulled them out. Now that I'm trying to point out the downside of potting soil, I can't find a single stick in it. Sometimes you'll get a bag that has a lot of stuff in it. Okay, so they'll have like chunks of bark, sticks, just little pieces of wood. And if you're putting this like in a big container, that's not a big deal. They'll just break down and add nutrients to your soil. Starting seeds, again, you don't want anything that's going to block those tiny little fragile roots from growing. So the one downside of using potting soil is that you're going to have to take this stuff out. Some people will build like a screen and like screen out a whole bag at once into a tub. I usually just find these pieces as I'm filling my pots up and just kind of throw them to the side. And that usually works. And you know, if a piece ends up in here, as long as it's not right where you're putting your seed, it's also probably fine. But I usually do try to take as much of that out as possible. Now this does have fertilizer in it. It has a slow release fertilizer. I have seen where people say that that's a negative in starting seeds because it can cause them to not grow right. I don't know. I've literally started thousands and thousands of seeds in potting soil, and like I've never experienced anything that I felt like they were really suffering. To me, if you're moving your seedling into this when it gets its first true leaves anyway, I just don't see how it could make that big of a difference. This bag is $10 versus $6 for a much smaller bag, so obviously it's going to go a lot further. Again, if you are concerned about like it having gnat eggs or weed seeds or anything like that, you can do the sterilizing step of pouring boiling water over it and just letting it sit till it cools down enough to handle. And the way I do this is I literally just fill my cups with it and put my seeds in it. I mean, just like you would use anything else. There's not like any other fancy steps. And because of the fact that it has fertilizer, if you just put a seed in a cup like this, you can leave it in that soil until it's ready to be transplanted out. I actually don't usually fertilize my seedlings and my plant starts until they're about 5 or 6 weeks old. So if I start them and then our last frost isn't delayed and the weather warms up and I can go ahead and move them out, I might not ever feed them. Maybe if they start showing signs for whatever reason, like if I notice some purpling on the underside of the leaves or something like that, I might add like a kelp fertilizer or some little organic liquid fertilizer into the water. But usually I don't, unless our last frost is delayed and I know they're going to be in the greenhouse longer than 5 or 6 weeks, at which point I will go ahead and fertilize them the same way I would if I was growing them in a seed starting mix that didn't have a fertilizer in it. And that's just to guarantee health. Otherwise, I just keep an eye on them, and if they show signs of needing something, then I'll do that. So you might find suggestions from people showing how they mix their own seed starting mix. That's totally an option. You can buy like cocoa coir and peat moss and just buy the different components in large amounts and mix it together. I probably would not suggest a brand new gardener doing that. I think that if you're just learning how to give plants those 3 things and learning how to discern if they don't have them, I would probably skip out on trying to mix something yourself, because I think it would kind of be hard to know what the problem is if you've not had any experience with it. So to simplify things for me, I go straight to buying a bagged product that already is going to be balanced and give my plants what they need from the beginning. Again, I definitely understand the application of seed starting mix. I absolutely do not condemn it. I understand why some people love it, and I think that it's a good product. But if the intended use is to just pot in a short while anyway, I just go straight to this. I will say that if you do not have a personal recommendation for a brand of potting soil that you like, I would probably not buy like 10 bags of something at once. Buy one if it's a new brand that you have no experience with, and see how you like it. And if you find it to be extremely dense or has a whole lot of branches or sticks in it, you might want to try a different brand. But I've used a few brands I do only use organic soil, so that might be something that would affect it. But I've used a few different brands and I've found them all effective for seed starting. So I hope this helps you at least to make a decision and understand how to make it with the most success. And however you decide to start your seeds, I hope you have success. It really is such a really cool thing to get to experience the joy of taking a seed from seed form to food on your table. The pride in that is just unreal, and the possibilities that it opens up in the gardening world is definitely worth the effort. There is a learning curve, but you can do it. I totally believe that you can do hard things, and it's really not that hard. It's just a little bit of a learning curve. I hope this helps you make the decisions to have success. I bless you. Until next time.